Hello, welcome to another edition of Talking Basketball Podcast. I am Mark. And you're not hearing anyone else. He's on holiday. He's jetted off. Orlando, if you haven't checked out the socials and YouTube, go check him out. Paul's having a lovely time over there. Thank you so much to Orlando for hosting us while we're out there. And you're going to see some good stuff from the Magic. So keep tuning in to our visuals on the Instagram, on the YouTube, and all those wonderful things. I think on Facebook as well. There we go. Anyway, let's get cracking with this week's episode of the Superleague Basketball Roundup. So for those of you who don't know, the BBL is no more. It's now called the Superleague in the UK. And what is really nice about it is for the media and the way that they've done a lot of those things, it almost has picked up where it's left off in respects that the quality is good, if not better than last year. I know Paul really likes all the camera angles. This is shown week on week as the games go on. So, I mean, this week was round 5 of what we're calling the trophy, rather what they're calling the trophy. So we've got a trophy. We have a normal championship, as you would like a normal league. You then have a playoffs at the end of that. But there is also a cup game or a cup competition that goes on in sort of the January time. So don't be confused by any of these. The trophy is its own separate entity. So none of these results will count towards the league, but it's definitely a good indicator about where we think teams are going to be. So this week has been big, really big week. Standout performances, no question, some really thrilling comebacks. And we've even had overtime drama. So that I'm going to start with the Leicester Riders on this one. Flawless week. Absolutely flawless week. The Leicester Riders are coming to the end of this trophy competition. 6 games played, 6 wins. You can't ask more than that. You can't ask more than that from a team. They maintained a completely unbeaten record. It was an 89-76 victory over Surrey. Jalen Hunter, absolutely instrumental, dished 12 assists and scored 13 points and just kept Leicester on top. But we've seen some performances all around all the leagues, and it's always critical when you're looking at these scores. You're not just looking at the points, you're looking at what are they adding to the team as a player. And 12 assists, as well as the 13, well done Jalen, that's great. But Leicester then went down and got Bristol Flyers 105-101 in overtime. And that one looked like it could have gone Bristol's way. Some might say Bristol had it and they lost it. I do think Leicester showed their depth there and they sort of had that ability to go over the top. But there were points that I thought the run's coming to an end. Zach Jackson, 27.7 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, what are you going to ask for more in a player on that? And just to continue Leicester's romp through this week, it's been busy for them. They've been busy chaps. 76-62 win over the London Lions. Last year, that had been a different score, certainly in London's favour. Jackson, again, really kicking off Leicester, maintaining the top of the position. He's been so key in this team this year. We've had a lot of the teams rejiggered it around from last season. You've lost some talent. We've gained some talent. And it's really nice with this trophy. It gives you a very concentrated look at where the talent is on each of these teams. But it wasn't all just the Riders in this spotlight. Cheshire, powerhouse performance up north. They beat Manchester 116-85, absolutely demonstrating why they are the top in the northern segment of the trophy. Now, Cam Holden, all-around game, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. I can't do it in Paul's normal voice because that's just crazy. But when you've got that sort of talent, just like we were talking about again with Jackson at Leicester, when you have these kind of caliber players, anything that is going to come at you from a team standpoint, they're a core. They're going to give you this week in, week out, night in, night out. It allows those coaches to strategize and build from that. What else can we do on offense? What else can we do on defense? So Cheshire are comfortable. They're sat there at the top. Meanwhile, Manchester, they had a massive win against Sheffield Sharks, 87-68. Big home win. And you could see for Manchester how much that meant. You could see how much, Donovan Mitchell dazzling, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. They started strong. Makai Ashton-Langford, he stretched the floor. Nathan Kao attacked at the point. Sheffield did put up a fight, and Sheffield are a team that we've really got to keep an eye on here. But Manchester absolutely kept the Sharks at bay there. 19-point win. That is really, really bouncing back in style from a little blip here and there. So could this be the resurrection of Manchester as a really key player in certainly British basketball terms? They, had a very storied history, not just as the Giants, but as other teams and names thereafter. So it would be lovely if they see a return to that sort of thing. Moving on, Caledonia. We haven't talked much about Caledonia. Now, over the last 2 seasons, Caledonia have obviously been a very, very important, I want to say, linchpin, not just in the northern segment, but actually as a powerhouse team. They've got a lot of investment going in there with Timothy and going into Europe. Where have they been? 86-81 victory over Cheshire. That'll give you a hint about, where the Gladiators can be. Very, very tough group clash, though. So I was quite surprised with this one because I generally thought at this point we were going to be seeing Cheshire just take that straight lead, a bit like Leicester, and take a sort of a full out flush full house. But no, Cheshire actually end up at the top of the league, 6 wins but 2 losses, obviously one of which dealt by Caledonia. So that does show you how close all of these teams can be on that night. It's no good saying, there's a very big gulf, as there has been. Certainly last season, we saw a big gulf in that talent. Not so now. Got to say, Isaiah Hill, 21 points for Caledonia, notched that massive win. And it was a nail-biter. At some stages, there's no question of that. But I do think Caledonia showed they've got more in the tank. A lot of these teams we've got to go back with. They're not in a rebuild phase, but a lot of talent moved on, and rightly so, because there was an unsure future with what the league was going to do. People have to secure contracts. On that basis, a lot of these teams are spending very little, if any, time going straight into this trophy tournament. So it's a really good indicator at where people are sitting, and where you see people now. I don't necessarily think it's going to reflect it towards the end of the season, but you never know. You're certainly seeing some talent come through. That's for sure. Newcastle, Sheffield. I'll be told off if I didn't mention this one. The Eagles edging out the Sharks 84-82. Real close one here. I actually thought the Sharks had it. I genuinely thought the Sharks had it there. So I think they may be kicking themselves on that one a little bit. Mike Okuru was the absolute standout, 25 points off the bench. I've got to highlight that, off the bench. So, that's how deep you need to have your team when you're coming up against some of these big powerhouses. And I don't really think going into sort of the end of this, we've got one more game in the North group to come, which is actually coming in a couple of days' time. And that's going to be Newcastle versus Manchester. It's not as in a foregone conclusion, but Cheshire and Newcastle are top of the top 2 positions in that northern group. So as it stands at the moment, the semi-finals are already set. We know it's Cheshire, we know it's Newcastle in the north. And in the south, we know it's also Leicester. And following with Leicester, that means Bristol Flyers will come in second place. So London didn't make the cut this year. Surrey didn't make the cut this year. And those other teams we've just been talking about with Caledonia, yeah, they got some strength. Same with the Sheffield Sharks. And Manchester, had a few upsets, but they are not in this next stage of the trophy. The next stages in the semi-finals, they're going to be played at early December. I believe it's the 6th and the 8th are the first few games. And then the following games are going to come on from that. I believe it's like the 20th or so. But you've got to stay tuned for this one because it's going to be in between what is happening with the other games. So we're starting the championship also this week. This is where I wanted to get to. It's not that it sounds more confusing than it is. I'm probably explaining it badly. But just to clarify, the championship begins the 1st of November. So that's going to be running through. They've got a few dates and some games. One thing they've done really nicely on the website is put some key dates down, because there is some FIBA games, not FIMBA, shout out to FIMBA, but there's some FIBA games for EuroLeague, etc., that they're going to be moving out from. So these guys are busy. They're all super, super busy. And if you're looking at this now, December, we go back to this trophy. So that's where you're going to be thinking, what does this game count for? Is this a championship game or is this a trophy game? Once the trophy is finished, then we get into the next year for the cup. Then again, the same thing. Is this going to be a cup or is this going to be a championship? So you do have to pay attention a little bit to understand what is the importance of this game. Now, some people have suggested perhaps you could do this double bubble, just like they're doing with what they called it in-season tournament last year. I believe it's the Emirates Cup now in the NBA. That was something that people were looking to do. Whether they do that or not, not sure. But I do like that concept. It just means there's extra onus on those games. The only downside to that is what we saw is points matter. So people were really, really jacking up the points, really going at it hard right to the end of the game, which made exciting games. But also, if you've got that as counting as a league game as well, it could skew some things. So it's interesting to see how it's going to be managed. To say the first time that we've gone back to a Trophy Cup Championship and standard playoffs, it was brought in a few years back. Then they scrapped it when the previous owners took over of British basketball. So now this is all back up and started again. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see how fatiguing comes into it. Let's see what some of the players who've been around more than the last 5 or 6 years, let's see what they make of it, not just the new blood coming in. So it is an exciting time for British basketball, and I think that's the thing we should all really focus and celebrate on. There's been some great games, really, really exciting games to watch. The coverage is getting better and better with each round. So it does look promising. So just stay tuned. That's all we can ask. And Paul would probably say the same, but he's not. He's having a lovely time in the sunshine. Well, I don't know if it's the sunshine today, but he's out there having a lovely time. And he's got some really cool things that are happening in the background. So more of that to come. But go check out our socials. Check out our Instagram. Check out our YouTube. It's Talking Basketball Podcast for both of them. And reach out to us. Because one of the things we always talk about is we get messages every now and again. We know, some people we know, we get messages here and there and that. But we want to see it more consistent. We want to really, really have a conversation with all of you who are listening. So if you have a point of view or you have a thought on something, it could be one of these games we're talking about. It could be something else. It could be in EuroLeague. It could be in the NBA. Reach out to us. Drop us an email, ukbasketballpodcast@gmail.com. Or obviously drop us on something on the socials. We're always happy to answer your questions, however crazy they may sound. We've had some unusual ones for sure. But also, we're always looking to interview people who are not just part of the basketball community, but have a really interesting story to tell. Or, relating to basketball, of course. I'm sure we all have wonderful stories to tell. So please get in contact if you think you know of or you are someone that we should be having a conversation with. We've got some really exciting guests who have come and gone through. We've got some more coming up. And it'd just be really, really nice to keep this growing, because Paul and I really enjoy this and love having a conversation with you all. But like any conversation, it's good if it's two-way. So on that note, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Normal function will resume in a few weeks, but for now, you're just going to have to put up with me doing these shorts. The next show is going to be about the NBA, but for now, thank you for listening. I have been Mark.